Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the Power of 8 at 8 with my wonderful co-host, Eileen. How's it going, Eileen?
It's going great. How about you, Shane?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful.
Cool. I slept 12 hours last night, so I should be okay, right?
Was it one of those? Was it one of those?
It's like once every 2 weeks. I just sleep forever. How about you?
I do have those every now and then where in the middle of the afternoon it's like, oh my God, I don't know what I'd do if I was working a 9 to 5 because I would have to literally just lay my head on my desk and
go to sleep.
and go to sleep.
Right? I'll crawl in a corner by the water cooler and fall asleep.
Lean in the stall or something. I don't know, but it would be a good time.
Headache, and I thought maybe it was mild. Maybe it was a headache from sleeping too long. Mm-hmm. It's not often that I'll sleep 12 hours, literally around the clock.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Did you feel like you had any dreams or downloads or anything?
Oh God, I had some wild dreams right before I woke up, and I was just kind of enjoying them because they were a little bit on the bizarre side, but they weren't scary.
Yeah, I love those.
I just don't even look for meaning in dreams anymore. I know I should, but sometimes I just see them like a movie, like something to enjoy, but not necessarily look for clues in, you know?
You'd be surprised. Do you write your dreams down?
I used to, like, I'm nearing 60, so I think I wrote my dreams down in my 30s and read all the books, all the interpretation books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed when I write my dreams down, I'll get more and more as I'm writing, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then it just forces you to sort of work your way through it.
That's a good point. By writing it down, a memory spurs another memory, and it just makes it fuller, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe I'll start doing that again. Maybe I'll start writing I'll get a dream journal and keep it right next to the bed.
And you seem to remember more dreams as you wake,
I recall a dream every night, and it's always the last dream I have as I'm waking up. So I'm obviously in REM, and then I'm awake in the dream, and then I step out of the dream, and I'm in the dream, and I'm in my waking up mode where I know I'm in my bedroom. So that's my lucid dreaming time. It's always as I'm waking up. How about you?
Yeah, that's the best for me too. The waking back to sleep method, they call it, where you wake up, you kind of go to the bathroom and for me it's running my wife to work, so I'm like up for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, I see. If I go back to bed in the middle of the night, I have to do it with my eyes closed, because if I open them and wake up, I'll lay there for another hour waiting to drift back in. So I really try not to wake myself up in the middle of the night.
Well, that's kind of the point, I guess, though. It's like, well, it's when you're waking up for the day, though, actually. And then you go back for sort of a little cat nap.
Oh, a little cat nap. Gotcha.
Yeah, that way your body's fully rested, but you're still groggy, sleepy enough that you can drift back to sleep if you're not really doing anything but laying there.
And get into the right brain waves.
Yeah, and then since your brain waves are low, but you're rested, then you don't disappear off into Never Never Land, as they say,
Well, I learned something interesting. If you have the brainwave frequencies, I have them in an email, but I can't pull them up for people right now, but you could probably search it. I assumed, since I found out, like Sherry, I'm a somnambulist, which means when I'm hypnotized, I go so deep that my respiration slows like tremendously, the blood pressure drops. It's that state where you could be a sleepwalker, where you're completely unconscious but physically moving around. And it's funny because my family used to tell me that I was a sleep talker. If I fell asleep next to them, I would suddenly sit up with my eyes wide open and say gobbledygook. They couldn't decipher anything I was saying. And then they go, Eileen, lay down, go back to sleep. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd lay down and I never woke up. Sat up, talked to them, Never woke up.
But it was gibberish, or you were speaking light language or something.
No, I thought it was gibberish. And then I think what my sister, Healthy Aging, if she's in, she watches us every Saturday night. She can, she's keeping me honest. I can't tell a lie because my sister's in here like every Saturday night. So I have to tell true stories about our childhood, right? She'll get a kick out of that. But she said that I'm speaking human words, but they make no sense to her. So I'm replying in my dream, right? And she doesn't know what's happening in my dream. So what I'm saying is senseless.
Yeah, it's out of context.
It's out of context. Yeah. Because I'll go, well, what did I say? Where was I? What was I doing? And she'd be like, I have no idea, but you seem to be enjoying yourself,
Mm-hmm. I did want to say, now that we've got a few people in here, we got about 38 in here, it looks like so far.
Hi, everybody. I'll catch you guys on the rebound. I'll check the chat.
So I did want to say real quick, one of our own and from our community suffered a great loss last night. So I didn't really have permission to mention them or anything. So I just wanted to let you guys know so you can send out love and light in a time of great need for them. And,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that goes on that we don't really hear about, because I know we have a lot of lurkers and stuff. And
yeah, we have a big community, don't we?
Yeah.
So I'm very, very sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, even for those who listen all the time, but you just don't chat or whatever, it's totally cool. You're still at the popular table, as they say. I think about it.
Oh yeah, people listening who don't want to chat.
Yeah, they just want to listen.
Now my sister says she puts us up on the TV so that she can pay attention to what you and I are talking about. And she says, I will not chat, I will not chat, I will not chat. And then the chat gets so interesting, she just has to get the TV off and put her phone on so she can talk in the chat. It's kind of funny. It's like, sometimes the chat, we're talking about the same topics and sometimes we're not. It's just like a forum where everybody's welcome and different viewpoints are welcome, and people are really respectful if you have a different viewpoint to them, so long as you don't try to change their mind. Have you noticed?
Yeah, definitely.
If somebody tries to change your mind, it's like, I will not be swayed that easily, you know?
Yeah, and I also realized how much, you really don't have to make a definite, decision with a lot of things. We create these decisions all the time that we have to create, and then a lot of times you don't even have to create that decision there. You can just leave it open. Yeah.
We can stay on the fence about everything forever. It's a really comfortable place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not really deciding, or sometimes like I'll decide and I'll say, well, based on evidence and research, this is what I think. But then, ask me tomorrow. I might read something or see something that totally flips that on its head. And I'm like, I never considered that. You know what I mean? And I'm very happy to discard any beliefs I have. Didn't somebody else say that once, that they're very happy to throw their beliefs away as they go?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who, if it was like Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden or Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, they probably all said it in their own way, haven't they?
Yeah, they said it's really good to just throw beliefs away, get used to it, because if you're going to
keep learning. Jim Self is another one, yeah.
Yeah, Jim Self.
Yeah.
This leads into kind of an interesting topic. I've been revisiting the New Thought writers and speakers. Mostly they wrote books because it was like the 1920s to 1950. Mm-hmm. There was a crop of, I think mostly men. I didn't really come across many women writing in the New Thought movement, even though we had Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey with Rudolf Steiner in the Theosophist movement right before New Thought movement. They blended together, right? Mm-hmm. And it was people like, I don't know if you can see this, Napoleon Hill, The Science of Personal Achievement. Did that come out clearly?
That's let me make it big for everyone else. Can you do it again?
Sure. This is just a little cassette series that I've had for a while. It's like not cassette, CD. Who listens to CDs anymore, right?
Yeah.
I do.
That's funny that CDs are outdated now, right?
I know, but I still have one in my car. I've got one in my bedroom. And then this one is really, I love this one. It's called The Wisdom of Wallace D. Wattles. I bet not many have heard of him. I know a few have, because some people have mentioned it to me. This tiny little book, right, less than 100 pages, contains 3 books. And the 3 books are The Science of Getting Rich, The Science of Being Great, The Science of Being Well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't have his book in front of me, but my mom gave it to me when I was like 20 years old, maybe 25. What is that? The Believe and Achieve, famous book by Norman Vincent Peale. Do you guys remember him? Way before your time, Shane.
The name sounds familiar, but
It was a really famous book. More than Wallace D. Wattles, more than Napoleon Hill. And then the one that I've been exploring on YouTube, I think somebody might have sent it to me, and I've watched 10 of his videos in the last 2 weeks, is Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard. He's English.
Mm-hmm.
He's with the movement. And the reason that he's different from the others is the others taught, if you think it, you can achieve it. If you believe it, it's yours. And they forgot about the heart. They forgot about the feeling. They forgot about the emotion. And Neville Goddard is doing these talks. They're all public domain now, so we can play some on here if we want to, like little snippets. And he's the one who says, well, of course, if you can conceptualize it, it's yours. If you believe it, you've got it. If you think it, you can have it. But you're not going to get it until you feel it. And he suggests that when you visualize, which is the great imagination, which creates the possibility into the particle, that's what he thinks imagination is for. He thinks human imagination is here just to pull all the possibilities into particulate matter, which is kind of cool, you know, for the 1930s and 40s, very advanced. And he said, while you're imagining, put yourself in it. Don't look at what you want from a distance. New car, new job, new relationship, right? Get yourself in the middle of it and look around. He goes, what does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it look like? And I was like, dang, that's what we're doing here on this show every weekend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
And he's talking about it in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
That's wild, isn't it? That's like the same thing that blew my mind about Saint Germain when I came across that material. I'm like, this is from the 1930s? What the heck?
Like, what? This is totally relevant to what we're doing now.
Totally.
Totally. So I don't know if that's a Mandela effect. I'm not going to say it is, but I don't recall ever.
We have many things.
Using your heart in the 70s, you know?
So if you think about it, we had that one song, the Play It Sam song from the movie. Do you remember me doing a video on that?
The Play It Again Sam.
Play It Again Sam?
Yeah, Casablanca.
Yeah, there was, like, if you look up that song now, the section that was not in the movie, I wish I could remember the name of the song. The lyrics are so...
A kiss is but a kiss. What is that song called? A smile is just a smile. Oh, As Time Goes By, right?
As Time Goes By.
Okay, got the title.
That's another one, because that song was super duper old, but the part that was in the movie, that was just a section of the song, and that's what everyone knows. They don't know the full song or the full lyrics. I don't know if it was ever even recorded the right way. So do you think it's not a Mandela
effect? Because wasn't the Mandela effect about Humphrey Bogart not saying, play it again, Sam? Was that the part where he just goes, play that song, Sam?
Or he says, play it, Sam. Yeah, it was play it instead of play it again.
I do not remember. I've seen that movie like 5 times. It was my husband's favorite movie. It was the last movie we saw together before he died. Very, very significant. Wow. And I remember it just saying, play it again, Sam. Not play it, play it.
Well, there was the Woody, what's that guy's
Woody Allen?
Yeah, there was a movie called Play It Again, Sam. That was... It played off of that.
Is that how? Oh, see, so that would like confirm our memory.
Except for if you're not.
That's why you misremember it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You got it. Yeah. That is so wild. I was trying to find the lyrics, but I don't.
Well, while you're looking for the lyrics, the one thing I was surprised about when looking into the hertz of the thought. And that's the alpha, beta, theta, and gamma. Gamma's the fastest, between 40 and 100 hertz.
Right.
And that's where you go into when you're meditating and visualizing. Your brain speeds up Now, logic told me that you would go the opposite direction because normal is alpha around like the earth, which is 7 to like 14 will
Right.
be a normal thinking. And then you can go down through the beta and the theta. I'm not sure which is which.
Or I think the beta
Buster,
is, I
1978 knows the.
I think the beta is the awaking state, and then alpha is like when the deep thinking state, but still awake.
Okay, and then theta is the bottom.
And
Then theta
then
would be the
and then
bottom,
delta and theta are the lower ones. I
and
can't
delta
remember
even
which.
further. So wouldn't you think, since those are the slower rates of unconsciousness of sleep, that you would go into the delta and the theta while visualizing, intending, and meditating? And it's just the opposite. And this is in Lynne McTaggart's book,
Mm-hmm.
The Power of Eight, which we based this show on and came together because of her book, right?
Yeah, and I have that link in the description for those
Oh,
who.
wonderful. And then Cynthia Sue Larson supported it when we talked to her about quantum jumping,
Mm-hmm.
that when you visualize and start intending deeply, your brain waves jump into the highest hertz
Which
and they
is
become
gamma.
active
Or
brain, excited brain. You get an excited brain.
okay, so delta is the lowest, and then theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. So we just had alpha and beta swapped, I guess.
But wouldn't you, we're close, wouldn't you have thought that when we meditate, we go into the lowest frequencies? Not that we jump into the highest frequencies. And I looked it up this week and it said when you're in gamma, the highest brainwave frequency, that's you get there through meditation.
Wow.
Would you have assumed that it would do the
No.
opposite, or just me, that it just slows down and that you go lower and deeper and slower and, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Where'd you read that from?
Oh, I was reading it on the internet from about 4 or 5 different sources explaining the difference between brain waves.
Mm-hmm. Because I know that when we talked about that before. When the quarterback is in the zone, he's like in that heightened, or
That's what made me look it up, because you were talking about getting in the zone and
Mm-hmm.
that it helps sports, right?
Right. Because it's for their brain, it slows things down because their brain speeds up, and it makes them perceive time as actually moving slower. So they have more time to think and make decisions. It's that sort of thing that takes over right before you have a wreck or right before something happens, and it's like
Okay,
time slowed down. You know how people report that a lot? It's like
I
time
do.
slowed down, and I try to steer out of the way, and
Well, now
or
get this. When time slows down and you get in that zone, I'm pulling up an email on it
mm-hmm.
that I emailed myself. Do you ever do that? Like find information
Yeah.
and then send it to yourself right away? When you get into that zone where time is slowing down, your brain waves are going super fast. So maybe that's why you think time is slowing down, because your brain waves are going.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, since the clock of your processor in your brain is moving faster, it's going to perceive everything slower. I think that's the purpose of it.
Okay, so
More
if you
time to
just like
think.
stall everybody, I'm going to read this really short email to myself because I think everybody might be fascinated with it. Maybe
Well,
not.
I think just to build on what you were saying though, with times you perceiving time as moving slower, maybe that's why some of the reports came out that you're slowing your brain down, because speeding it up actually produces this symptom of it seeming like it's actually slowing down. So maybe people, I don't know, maybe it was like a bad rumor that got started.
Well, that's an interesting concept because with the Mandela effect going on, do we ever know if anything is ever truly changing, or we just didn't know the truth until now? Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Like, is that a
There's
real
people that,
change, or was I ignorant of the information until this moment? Okay, I got hit with another one this week that might be a Mandela effect, but I just didn't feel like doing a video on it. Um, yeah, I was a movie came up. I'm loading the email on brainwaves. A movie came up on my free Roku thing that was A Star Is Born from 1937, and it's not the one with Judy Garland. It's the one before Judy Garland. And I put it on, and it was in color, and it went in amazing Technicolor, and I'm going, no, to the screen. This is not possible, because when I was in film studies in high school, when was that? Like, I graduated in 1979, so it might have been 1978. We learned in high school film class that the first color full-length feature movies in Technicolor were Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. And everybody, if you Google it now or search it now, everybody says it was The Wizard of Oz. They forget about Gone with the Wind. And of course, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs did come out in color in 1938, but that was an animation. That was not a full feature film with moving people in color. So when I saw a color film from 1937, I picked up my search engine and read all the articles about Technicolor. And do you know what it said?
What?
They produced full-length Technicolor movies since 1922. And I'm like, not in my reality they didn't, because we were taught that Gone with the Wind, and that was the kind of really famous thing about The Wizard of Oz, was that it was the first Technicolor film. Anybody in the comments remember learning that?
Oh, yeah, I remember learning that, and it was all before my time, yeah.
Was it Wizard of Oz or Gone with the Wind, or was it both? Because I learned both in film studies.
I learned
they both came out the same year.
Yeah, they came out around the same time. Those were like the first two color, full
So
length.
would you be surprised if you watched a movie in glorious Technicolor from 1922?
That's a trip.
That's a trip. It's kind of like all those videos Lone Eagle was doing with tech before their time.
Yeah,
did you guys
exactly.
see those where he was showing videos from the 1860s?
Yeah, videos from the 1800s. That's ridiculous. You know, in my reality, way back then, they were still they had like the cloth where they put over their head and a little accordion-looking thing, and they'd have
really
to move
bad
the thing.
photography, right?
The shutter was like all manual, and that's like the very beginnings. But this goes right along with the JFK one, where the Zapruder film is now in color, right?
Yes.
This whole idea of color being invented much earlier. So
much earlier.
At the time of the JFK assassination, they were already home cameras, home video cameras were already in color. We're already in color, you know?
Yeah, so again, I guess
crazy.
this watching A Star is Born in glorious Technicolor is what it says at the beginning of the film. I'm like, my jaw just dropped. I'm like, you're kidding me, 1937?
Yeah.
Totally beat out Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind from 1939. So would you say Mandela effect? Probably. I can't prove it.
So this would also tie in with televisions. They had to have been invented earlier in this reality, right?
Yeah. You know who did a video on that? Our friend, we love her, Effective Collective.
Yeah.
Remember?
Erin.
She did something about jukeboxes in the 1930s or 20s. Was it the 30s or the 20s that played videos? So you'd you put your dime in, push a button, get the song to play, and a video would play.
Music videos had like the Beatles and stuff on it. I thought it was later than
I thought it was before the Beatles.
I thought it was 60s, 70s, but
maybe then her point in that video, because it was a while ago when I saw it, was that we didn't have jukeboxes on the wall playing television, because back then we'd go to the TV to see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, right? Yeah,
that's amazing, isn't it?
It was kind of a big deal.
So yeah, that's almost 20 years. So okay, so you remember the part in Back to the Future where he rolls out the TV and it's like, wasn't it, what was the thing that he says about the TV? Wasn't it that it was color?
Yeah.
It was like the newest.
It was color.
And that was in 55. Remember, they went back to 1955.
That sounds like the timeline that I'm familiar with.
Right, so that scene's probably changed in that movie, I would think, then. Because it wouldn't fit with the current timeline if it was...
I wonder if it's still there. I haven't checked.
We got to check that out.
Yeah, we got to see if it's still there.
And it's Back to the Future. What a perfect movie to do that.
You know, okay, they can't change my Bible in my room, right? But they can change anything online, right? Okay, I got the gamma wave. Sorry it took so long. I pulled it up on my phone.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This kind of surprises me. Okay, so we'll go into the thinking waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you say they were? Not alpha, they were beta?
Yeah, the awake is beta, and then when you close your eyes, you immediately go into alpha, so that's a little bit lower, deeper thought. But you're awake.
So beta waves range from 12 hertz to 40 hertz. They're above the hertz of the Earth. Optimal critical thinking, writing, reading, socializing. Alpha, 8 hertz, that's like the Earth, to 12 hertz. And the point of the alpha waves is bridges the gap between conscious thinking and the subconscious mind. Then you go into theta, which is 4 hertz to 8 hertz. And
you're asleep there, right?
Yeah, almost. It says experiencing and feeling deep emotions. So you might still be awake. It's an emotional thing. Delta waves are the slowest in human beings, and they are found most often in infants as well as young children. As we age, we tend to produce less delta during sleep time, which probably makes us feel less rested, right? They're associated with the deepest levels of relaxation, restoration of the cells, and healing sleep. Because I have read that you replace your cells while you're sleeping, and you grow while you're sleeping, right?
Right.
So that's
and
done.
Problem solve too. So that would be another thing with. So I'm looking here.
That's all delta. But wait, if you go really fast, gamma waves, 40 to 100 hertz. Yeah, that's optimal for processing, learning, perception, REM sleep, and meditation, visualization. So when we're intending and we're meditating and we're visualizing for a change on the earth, our brains go into high excitement of the 40 to 100 hertz range, like REM sleep. And I thought they would just go super low and get really slow.
It's funny you say that, because like if you just put in what are brain waves into the search, it comes back as saying for theta waves, 3 to 8, theta waves occur most often in sleep, but also dominant in deep meditation. So it's almost like you go down to go up, or something.
You go down to go up. Interesting. So you don't get to gamma waves from your waking state of
From
alpha
beta,
and beta. You go down into your theta and your delta, and as soon as you get really low in delta, it shoots you up into gamma.
I wonder if that's part of putting the physical part of us asleep. Like, lay down, now let's get some work done in gamma. You know what I mean?
Super conscious working. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And maybe it's knocking the consciousness out.
Yeah.
The thinking critical part of us, and getting into either our subconscious or a superconscious. Do you see a difference between subconscious and superconscious? Or what's really interesting with Paulo, Spirit Walker in Australia, is that he sees it as it was originally taught as just the unconscious. You have the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. And then we've got, I think that's Freud, and then we've got Jungian saying we have the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, and the superconscious mind. And then even Dolores Cannon used to get confused. She would even say so, I'm not being mean, about when she put people into those deepest levels of relaxation and hypnosis for QHHT. She said at first she thought she was talking to the subconscious, their subconscious. Then she thought she was talking to the collective subconscious mind. And in her later works and speeches and conferences, she said, I soon realized I was talking to the collective superconscious human mind, like above everything.
I think there is levels. I think, from the personal, personally we all have our consciousness, and then it spreads out, and there's like an earth consciousness, that we would consider to be, at this level. And then there's universal or cosmic consciousness. But I think above, somewhere in between there, above cosmic and the individual, and then the higher self, there's a collective subconscious or consciousness.
Yeah, you're going into the theta healers and the Hindu and the Buddhist levels of consciousness and the Theosophists. And they all argue whether we have 7 levels, 9 levels, or 11 levels. Often you don't hear 10 or 8. They just don't seem to like those numbers. Tesla said he visited 26 levels or dimensions above us is where he got his information. He went up to 26.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's wild, isn't it?
So yeah, there's probably a bunch more crammed in there. I think it's kind of like, with what we see with our vision and hear with our ears, we've just got a window of what we deal with our sight and sound or whatever. And I think it's probably that way with our consciousness. I think we're pretty much dealing with two, between just life on Earth anyway. I mean, there's more out there, but it's like, and I think that's why we have these dual memories. Sometimes with the Mandela effect.
Levels of consciousness, or do you think those are dimensions or timelines? Or do you think timelines and dimensions are levels of consciousness? Is that what you're saying? Because it's kind of saying, well, wait a minute, maybe the timeline or dimension is just a slightly further level of consciousness than what we normally see.
Yeah, I would imagine they're linked together. Because, if you've got your higher consciousness and the super consciousness, they would be on the higher dimensional planes where we can't see them.
You see, in some of those higher dimensions,
outside of time,
a lot of these groups say that's where your emotions dwell. Mm-hmm. Not just yours, everybody's. So even though you're a happy chappy, you might, if you're astral traveling into the astral realm, you might bump into somebody else's really scary emotion.
Right.
And it might not be yours, but you're in the realm where emotions live. So you're going to see it and think it's something that's coming to get you, and you're going to zip back into your body. That's an interesting concept. And then they say when you go further out, you can get to where our dead relatives hang out, like heaven, or until they're reborn, depending on what you believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go further out, you get to angelic energy. And then mm-hmm. the furthest you can go is to source, where God energy is, where everything that was, is, or ever will be, the creator of universes. That energy is out there, but very hard to access because
But how many levels is that? If Tesla said he went 28.
Yeah. I think Tesla said 26.
26.
And other people say 7, 9, or 11. So maybe it's infinite. Maybe it's an infinite number of dimensions or levels to get to God. Maybe God is infinity.
Yeah. I would imagine it's infinite.
Yeah, infinite. Don't they say that if you move towards the wall, okay, so you're 8 feet away from the wall, and each step you take halves that distance. So the next time you're 4 feet in front of the wall, and then you halve it. How do you say that word? Half it,
yeah.
Half it again. It's how it's spelled. Is like weird. It's like elf. And then you make that half again. So you're 4 feet away, and then you make it half again, you're 2 feet away. You make it half again, you're 1 feet away. And you keep doing that.
You never get there.
You never get to the wall. You always have to do half of the distance between you and the wall. So even if you became a microscopic bug, you'd still have more distance to move.
That's pretty much how they make the Mandelbrot, what do they call that? Fractal.
Yeah, the Mandelbrot fractal zoom.
Yeah.
I love them.
They take that and they half it, and then they half it, and they half it, and half it, and it just keeps going out. And they use that same algorithm with creating realistic, and check this out, water and fire and things like that in this 3D animated, environment where they create these special effects. When they apply a fractal algorithm to the way the flames move and stuff like that, like it breaks into smaller and smaller flames, it does all the work for them.
Seriously?
And they stumbled onto this easy fix for creating realistic fire and stuff like that, and it was the fractal, the Mandelbrot.
Because you can never get to the bottom of a Mandelbrot zoom.
And when you look at fire, it's like that. From a distance, you see a huge flame. You move closer. There's smaller flames. You move closer. They get tinier and tinier, and of course, you can't get any closer because it's hot.
Okay, well, you can't get to the wall either. You can't get into the fire. You can't get to the wall, and that's basically telling us we live in infinity. We don't live in any boundaries. There are no boundaries because you can never get to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So we're infinite creatures living in an infinite dream that we've imagined into this particulate matter.
Yeah.
But even that's not real, because if you zoom into matter, you can go in forever and never get to the bottom of the matter. So even that's infinite.
So that reminds me of in that movie Inception. I don't know if you remember, they had the architect.
I had to see it twice. I did not get it the first time.
Yeah, I've watched it probably 4 times now. But there's the architect that has to create the realistic world, but create the boundaries without them seeming like boundaries. so that, and it's kind of like the same thing here, but instead of it being like it's just a void out there, you've got to stop people from just going out into the void, which is what it sounds like in reality. In the dream world, it was just, I guess, the same concept. You just don't want them to wander off into nowhere.
Fall into trouble with the flat Earth concept is falling into the void, because if you set off from the coast of Africa heading east, you can go around the world and wind up on the west coast of Africa without falling off into the void somewhere.
Right.
Since we can circumnavigate our globe sailing on water, doesn't that prove that we're not a flat Earth, where obviously the ship would get to the edge and meet a government warning sign saying, turn around or you're going to fall off the edge of the Earth?
Well, no, because in the flat Earth theory, they assume that as you're moving your way around it, you're going around it this direction. So you're still going around it. You just don't realize you're slightly turning, just like on the ball, you don't realize you're slightly turning this way. So it's really the same thing.
Now, can you tell how people, if you make the whole thing flat and you think you're going around, you're just going around a flat circle.
Right. It's like the track's so big, you don't realize you're slightly turning.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I mentioned that to you then.
Yeah, so it's the illusion, like in the in Inception.
But then why can't they turn and go off the edge of the Earth? If they're going around and around and around, what's keeping them on
Antarctica
the circle? Why don't they just turn off the circle and fall off into the void?
Antarctica. There's the wall of ice.
All around the whole of the Earth.
Yeah.
Antarctica. And it's a huge wall. Have you seen it? Isn't it 30 or 40 feet high? Maybe taller.
Yeah, some areas it looks super tall, yeah.
Super tall. It's a wall. It's a wall of ice, and it's illegal for anybody to fly over it. So that makes it highly suspicious. Right?
There is a lot of suspicious
Buzz
stuff.
Went there, started saying some crazy things, and he died soon after. It was like, whoop. Is that a coincidence? I don't know.
That is weird, isn't it? Wasn't he even wearing a shirt with a message on it or something?
Yeah, I think
cryptic message.
Yeah, and then he said things to children in an interview that we never went to the moon, and he died soon after that. Yeah. He said it in a way like, I'm not divulging any great secrets. We just never went there. So it was almost like a kind of senility had set in where it was okay to tell the truth.
And I think that's a really good point, because you even actually brought this up on SMQAI when you were on there. Sort of and this came up, and all these pieces just sort of came together right before the show when I was thinking about talking about this, bringing it up. During the BQH session I had, in which they were, I asked about disclosure, it was, disclosure is happening. It's already happening to the people that want to see it. So then I realized the way it seems when you try to talk to somebody about the Mandela effect, you might as well be talking to them about anything from ghosts or UFOs or flat Earth or anything like that, and they just turn you off. They don't hear you. So when you were on with SMQAI and you guys were talking about how we add credibility to institutions like the doctors or the news organizations or people like that, but we actively know that they're trying to deceive us in many instances, or they've got their own agenda. Let's just put it that way. So
I know what you're saying.
Why are we waiting for disclosure in the people that we know it's their job not to disclose the information? That's what I'm getting at here. It's out there.
It's basically what you're saying is we are the disclosure.
Yeah, right. And we know. I mean, the people who want to know can find out.
Of course they can. It doesn't even take a great deal of research to find out that we've been visited for a very long time, because you can look at government video of UFOs now. Don't you think? It's out there now. It's available.
And I think they're just trying to just leak a little bit at a time and show that we're making progress towards disclosure, but I don't think they ever plan on fully coming out.
Those news segments from late 2016, was that it, or was it early 2017? We talked about it years ago, I'm sure, where suddenly CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News were saying, government officials say we have been visited for a long time by alien life. Do you remember those? And then no more was said. And there was no shock and awe from the public. The public just kept eating their cornflakes, going, hey, it's true. I always knew it was true,
So what I'm trying to say is, if it ever came to a point where they started mentioning it on the news, I know it would be it would trend for a while. We'll put it that way. But people, I don't think people would
into
all
it?
of a sudden like wake up and now that the news said it, we'll believe it. Well, let's look into all this other stuff. I think they'll just be just as unconcerned about it, if you will, because I thought many people would hear about the Mandela effect. You'd show them things, and then all of a sudden they, like I did, I felt like I popped awake. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Right, but
it's impossible. But instead, what do most people do? Change the subject.
yeah. So people are just going to change the
Or they
TV
just make up
channel.
an entirely new fact to fit what they just saw. Have you noticed that? I think Truth Seeker, is her name Truth Seeker 69? She just did a video on that. She calls it reverse. What is it when your paradigm doesn't fit anymore? What is that called?
Cognitive dissonance.
Yes. She just did a video on reverse cognizant dissonance
Mm-hmm.
where she asks the guy, so do you remember how many people were in the JFK, the John F. Kennedy car during his assassination? And he names them and he goes, I guess there were 6. And she goes, that's funny because I remember 4 and a lot of people remember 4. And he goes, you're right. I think I used to remember 4. I remembered 4 too. So he changed his memory. And I wrote down there, because it was such an interesting video to see that response, that he's now holding dual memories so that depending on who he's talking to, he can either say 4 or he can say 6.
Strange, isn't it?
Isn't it? And I think that's a mechanism of human psychology. I think we have something deep in our psyche, which is obviously not the gray matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere in our psyche, we have this lever that when things get too scary, the lever flips. And now we have an explanation for it. We go, oh, that's because of this. Like I was talking to a car salesman when my daughter bought her first car, and he had Star Wars memorabilia all over his office, like the physical toys, as a collector would.
Right.
And I said, wow, you really like Star Wars. I said, yeah, I do too. I took all my nephew Ty to it all the time. We must have seen Star Wars 10 times. And I said, do you remember that line, Luke, I am your father? And he went, yeah, that's a very famous line. He goes, I think that's the most famous line. I said, yeah, did you know that they've changed it to, no, I am your father, somehow? And he goes, yes, I remember when they made the change. Something about George Lucas didn't like it anymore, and he changed it 10 years later. And I'm like, really? Because you've just totally made up a fact that does not exist in my reality and not in any of our Mandela affected reality.
Did you ever look to see if...
No, he just made it up on the spot to make his paradigm fit.
Okay, so do you think that's what I'm talking when I say the group consciousness or the Earth's consciousness or whatever? I'm sort of viewing it as the simulation idea, right? So everything's really the consciousness is the chip in the computer. So instead of it being like a real computer like we have in our homes or whatever, it's all ran and powered by us because we are it. We're the energy of God, if you will.
Yep.
The Big Bang is the thing turning on or whatever. You know what I mean? So we're in God.
The computer of life, right?
So I don't know when I think of that.
But then who are the programmers? You and me collectively, and everybody here, or God?
I think it's some type of AI that's designed to protect the illusion of the fact that this is an illusion. It's supposed to make us really believe in the fear of it, the challenge of it, and it's like an AI. I don't know if it's sentient.
He saved himself from seeing through the smoke and mirrors and going, "Oh my God, there is no reality here that's fixed."
I don't think of it as a bad thing. I think of it as it's part of the game. It's part of keeping us in the illusion of it because it's really like training ground, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. Experience. Yeah.
I'm interviewing you tonight.
Okay.
Next question. Then what turned off that switch in just a handful of people? What is it that allowed us to see the illusion? What do you think? The introduction.
Yeah. I think it's the introduction of a new Christ consciousness into our reality. That's what I think this...
Spiritual and metaphysical. I do too.
So I think it's a higher dimensional consciousness that your frequency has to be a match to. So some people are just going to see it. Some people aren't. Some people will in the future and they just aren't there yet.
Yeah.
I think
And you
it's like
can't make them see it. We already know you can
right,
hammer them with Mandela effects, and that's not going to make somebody actually see one and go, oh my gosh, you're right.
right. But somehow, when you can tap into that, you can retain some of the original identity before, you're not caught up in the illusion of the game, so to speak. Because I think that was the game at work in this guy you're talking about. He just automatically. I don't think he came up with it in his mind. Is what
No,
I'm
he
saying.
just said it. Like
I
it
think he
was matter of
downloaded it.
fact. He
Yeah,
downloaded
he
it.
just.
I'm like, how did
Yeah,
you just make that up on the spot? But it saved him from having a paradigm crisis and
well,
going, well, no, I didn't realize that. How could they change that line in all movies? Because it was said so long ago, it's there. It's protected by reality because it was recorded that way. So
yeah,
how could they go back and change it in all copies
yeah,
and make it different? That would be impossible, like on my VHS tape in my attic. They couldn't get to that tape and change it, but they did.
right.
I mean, that was the funniest new early Mandela effect video I ever saw. It was some guy just literally like pulling his hair out going, they couldn't get to my copy. How did they change it? How did they get to my version of Star Wars and
Yeah,
change it? You know?
yeah. Like Vanessa VA had put out that one where the guy was like looking at the line in the Lamb scripture, and he's like, "It's under my highlighter." You could see him like freaking
I
out.
highlighted this. And when I did, it said lion, not wolf. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a trip. It's
Some
a
people are
trip,
very
man. I
funny
don't.
why they get so like, oh my God, I don't know. But
Okay, so to go back to this thing with this guy in the store, and he rewrites this history that makes sense,
yeah,
and
it makes
it takes
sense.
takes the mystery out of it.
Yep.
How do we know that's not the same mechanism that rewrites the history of something being the new way for people?
Yeah, exactly. How do we know that our new Mandela effects even exist
Yeah,
and that they're not just a download like the guy who came up with a reason for a change? How do we have proof of what real is real? Which real is real and which real is false? We have no proof, really, do we?
and this is
Which is
all
why
we
people
know.
say,
So
"Oh my God, they're crazy. It's confabulation." Right?
yeah,
Somebody said on again SMQAI on their Saturday 2 o'clock show. It's a real good match for our community if you guys ever are free at 2 o'clock. He does something with Chick called the Lost and Found Bin, and they just talk about this like we do, Shane. Just examining all the different sides of it and flipping it around and kind of like flipping our thoughts around and trying
yeah,
out new paradigms in the process of trying to like dissect this thing.
mm-hmm,
And someone said, I think conspiracy theories wake us up. And I went, oh my God. It was a woman, and it was in the comments. And I was like, you're right. I first woke up to conspiracy theories thanks to my sister. I was in happy little England where I didn't have chemtrails. I didn't have scary GMOs. I didn't have over vaccination or any of these other things going on. We did, but I had no clue about them. And she was like telling me what they were finding out about things. And then I looked into them and researched them and thought, oh my God, these things are really happening. So now I was a conspiracy theorist, right?
mm-hmm,
And I stayed there for many years before I understood the Mandela effect. I was just a truther. That's the nice word for
yeah,
a conspiracy theorist, is a truther, somebody who
yeah,
always seeks the truth. And I think that comment was true. She was right that everybody in our community, we're all truth seekers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for everyone it happens different ways. It might be like 9/11. That's why I see the whole
Yeah.
flat
Yeah.
Earth thing is a great thing because it gets people asking questions and looking into things. So even if the whole theory, I know it's real to those people who believe
Yeah,
it
or
or
JFK
whatever.
assassination, all those conspiracy theories.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. And it forces you, and that's sort of, there's all these layers to this whole awakening process. So you find out you were lied to about, from the media, from the politics,
you're looking
from
for the truth
religion, and
under the truth. Under the truth. You're
yeah.
trying to get to the real truth, not what you're told, right?
And it's set up to where if you don't want to do that, if you want to believe the facade and the illusion of it, you don't have to look any deeper. You can have your 9 to 5 job, pay your bills, get stuff. You
Well,
know what I
think
mean?
about it then what possible good could we get out of being truthers? Because when you're just like floating along in the unreality of the reality they're presenting to you, it's stress free because nobody's ever doing anything wrong. Everything's perfect. Your food is healthy, your air is healthy, and your water is healthy. Go to sleep and have another healthy day.
The whole ignorance is bliss thing.
Yeah. And then we get into the truth of it and we're like sweating and angry and going, you can't do that to our water, right?
Yeah. So, and Bashar actually talked about this. I think he was talking about what they're spraying up there, and he says the community is really their biggest advertisers, because they produce this unbeatable force that makes people feel like, what are we going to do? So I think
we're being rewarded as truthers with a heck of a lot more frustration and emotional triggering than the la la la, everything's great people. So there must be a point to it. Maybe the next step, when you get into the Mandela effect and you see that reality is not what you've been told, maybe that's the reward. Maybe the reward of going through that pain and suffering, of looking for the things that are not true, finally rewards you with an honest view of reality. Maybe that's the reward. Do you think?
I think it's just about keeping momentum going through those levels that we all, the awakening. I think that the problem is sometimes we'll get stuck somewhere, Well,
a lot of people get stuck in the anger.
Right, that's what I mean.
Things not being the way they thought they were, and you have to move through that. You can't go over it, you can't go around it, you can't go under it. You have to move through it. And that's where love and forgiveness helps you get through the anger, I think.
Yeah, and I think the way people are able to move through the stages at different speeds creates this bridge almost. So while my channel might have hung around and talked about conspiracies, it's moved to other things, and there's been this progression. But, that's not to say like Moneybags isn't doing an awesome job with, focusing on the Mandela effect and the changes and getting the words out there.
So he uses humor and good nature, and I think he has a deep spirituality that comes through, even though he talks about the effects rather than the spiritual side of the effects. Don't you feel that? Don't you sense? Yeah.
And that's been my way through my whole life, too, is to constantly keep moving and changing. So I get bored if I stick with anything too long.
And I feel like we've kind of moved away from the truther channels. Have you? Because I now don't watch them anymore, the hardcore truthers, because they're always angry at what's being done behind the scenes without our consent. And I'm like, wow, you just can't stay in anger. It's not going to serve you, and it's not going to serve the greater community. You need at some point to say, okay, I see it. I don't agree with it, but I'm going to move on now. You know what I mean?
And that's where it serves its biggest purpose, I think, is as a wake-up call, But sticking in that area and just being
a world with perfectly clean water for everybody and perfect air, clean and healthy food for everybody, and, we're not there yet, but if we keep living and being as if we are there, then I think the rest of the world will catch up with us. I think we'll create it through our being. Yeah.
And we're getting back to that frequency and becoming a match for what we want instead of lingering down where we don't.
Instead of being angry all the time that things aren't the way you want them, rise above it and be as if they are.
Right. Yeah. But you can't want them, you don't want them to go away completely, because there's still the rungs on the ladder that we need as people progress through their awakening. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like they can go away from me now because I've been on those rungs. But for other people who haven't awakened yet, they're still serving a purpose.
That's where they're at. People up. Where we were 6 months ago or a year ago or wherever. And,
3 years ago. So then you're saying we really need two earths. We need an earth for the people who are ready to simply be in a space of goodness and well-being, and the earth where everything's a little bit rough and topsy-turvy because it will wake them up to the reality of the power of their own consciousness to determine their reality.
I think it's probably a lot like school with graduations. It's like, if you don't graduate this time around, you get it the next time around. And it could be a daily graduation for all we know. People might drop dead and we think they're gone.
Theory that says one may not go unless all go. That we're one. We are one, united as humanity, and none of us can ascend until we all go. What do you think about that as a possibility?
I think that's true. I think eventually, maybe not at the same exact time, but eventually. That
upsets a lot of people in our community. They're like, no, don't tell me that, because I'm ready to go now. And I'm seeing some people that are doing things that show they're way far from graduating to a new earth. They don't want to wait for Hillary and Donald to catch up.
Right. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more like that's sort of one of the byproducts of the illusion of time is that they're lagging behind. But I don't know. I think when we all exit the game or go to the next level or whatever you want to call it, I think everyone will be there. We'll perceive it just differently. You know, it's kind of like if a couple
like
dies.
All different versions with all the same people on it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's interesting, which means there is no time. So there are all the versions of you already exist right here, right now, from the very, very naive and ignorant to the supremely knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
And where are you in between on that level? And it's interesting, people call it leveling up now. They're like, yep, got to level up. Go up a level. It's kind of like playing a Mario game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Level up when you figure out how the world works. They're called worlds.
Right.
In Super Mario Brothers. And as soon as you pass all the challenges and you know that world inside and out and how it all works, you level up.
That makes sense to me. And you can see how a couple that's die 20 years apart, maybe they both pop into this higher realm at the same time, but on Earth it was separate. I mean, I can see things like that happening.
That would be nice. That would be a nice thing for me. Some people I've been reading lately are tracking reincarnation rates based on children remembering previous lives, which is like up to the age of 7 or 8, and then they kind of forget them, are saying that people now are cycling into new lives like every 25 years, like it's speeding up. And then the research that was done 50 years ago, they were cycling every 100 years, and before that, even longer periods. So you know how this time is speeding up feeling?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that it applies to future lives as well on Earth, that everything's going faster. Did you ever watch that documentary, The Great Year, which shows how if we have a binary twin sun, as it gets closer, everything moves faster and then it slows down again. Mm-hmm. And then everything moves faster. It's like on this elliptical orbit where it would speed up time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it actually slings out and the gravity reduces and it causes it to,
So that would speed up our time here, and it would also speed up our reincarnations. If you believe in reincarnations, I do. I'm really comfortable with the idea that you get to come here a lot until you get it right.
Yeah, I'm on board with that too, definitely. I guess where I might divert a little bit is that you have to. I don't think
you have to.
Yeah, I think it's just an optional thing.
I don't think
I'll take that course again.
Earth,
I'll take that Earth course again.
Coming back as a punishment. And the funniest thing is when people now say, when you're dying, don't go into the light, stay in the dark. It's like, you haven't died yet. How do you know the light is not God? Stay in the dark, don't go into the light, or boom, you get put back on Earth again in a baby's body. It's kind of funny. It's kind of cute. And then having died and been resuscitated, even though I was only dead for 5 minutes, I can tell you 100%, you have no choice. What happens to you happens to you. When you're dying, you just go through the motion and you can't decide, do I really want to leave this body right now? No, I'm going to stay. You have no choice.
I've heard that before. Like you know, if you see the light, stop, turn around, and go through the lattice or something. Have you heard? Where did that come? Did that come from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth or something? Or?
I don't believe it, because my sister got to go to the light when she was being. They had life support on her for a couple of weeks, and they were keeping her alive. They were breathing for her, and she got to go all the way through to where my grandma was, and that's where people see Jesus or Buddha. You know, that beautiful place. Like in Anita Morjani's book, Dying to Be Me. She got to go there too while she was still on life support. And I didn't get to leave the room. I got to just hang around on the ceiling waiting for them to get my body going again so I could get sucked back in. I didn't get to go through the light to the other places, the other dimensions. Where
you didn't get to meet with Jesus and talk to him and get instructions.
I didn't get an angel or music or light. I just hung around on that ceiling. So I must have known, this isn't my time. I'm not going anywhere. But the whole point is, whether you get to the other side or not, you have very little choice in the matter. You literally just do what feels natural for you to do. Don't be afraid of dying. Nobody can do it wrong. You can't do dying wrong, just like you can't, do being born wrong. I mean, I know there's medical accidents that have nothing to do with the soul inside the baby,
Right. It's not like the soul messed up or something.
Yeah, it's not like the baby's soul went, oh, I don't know how to get through this birth canal. I'm going the other way. I'm going to go up through the lungs instead. There's like no decisions.
Right.
You just go with the flow. And isn't that like comforting to know that at the time of death, you won't have to make decisions. You can just go with the flow and be safe.
Yeah. And then they tell some of the things is like, they'll show up as your dead loved ones or whatever, and then they'll look just like them, sound just like them, and trick you into going back into the thing. And it's like all this stuff that, it's like all this fear attached to you.
Yeah, I wonder if you come up with that, because everybody who shares near-death experiences in books, they don't really get... It's interesting because it's not like as soon as you die, you pop back into another life. That's never been expressed. That you're on like this rubber band, in, out, in, out, in, out. Like, everything expresses that you get some time over there to kind of absorb your last lifetime,
It's actually that time you're talking about that seems to be reducing, correct? Down to 25 years now?
Are reducing. They're reporting it like a child will have remembrances of a particular life, and then somebody will research it to see, well, was this person real? And they'll find out they were, and they died like 25 years ago.
Before their new version was born.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how children can now be born as a father's father. Okay, your father can be born as your son, because it happens so fast now that the families can stay together more. Than if there was 100 years in between. It'd be really hard for one to recognize another.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah, and for sure the grandkids.
For sure, the grandkids.
Skipping a generation, you could for sure. Because I was thinking like my daughter was 22 and she had my grandson, and so that's almost the 25-year mark. I mean, if she had one now or in the next couple of years, that would be right at that 25-year mark.
Their dead grandparents and parents coming back as their children and their grandchildren. And then like if they died of something or had a remarkable birthmark, the new baby will have that too.
Exactly.
Think, oh my God, it's gotta be. They have the same mole in the same place, or the same, when you have a pigmentation change of color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? That you can carry over stuff from, because I've seen that in BQH sessions too, where people will have either an ailment or an actual mark from an injury from... Yeah, that's weird, huh?
Yeah, I don't really get into it very much anymore, but I love past life regression research and death and dying research. To me, those are the two most rewarding areas to research, because they take away all the fear. When you read about other people's experiences with these things, you're like, there's, other people have done it before me. I can do it too. No problem. And they say the clinging is what slows down the dying process. It's the fearful person who wants to cling to life. And that if you're ready to let it go with love and appreciation, for those you leave behind and everything you had, then the process is just really easy.
So I think the Dark Night of the Soul did it for me. I think it introduced me to the idea of not being fearful of dying, and then I would say the DMT journey helped a lot because... Oh
yeah, you experienced that, which is altered states of consciousness.
Exactly. And I got to the point where I didn't know who I was for, I don't know how long it was. It was really only a minute or two, but it seems like a long time. But, you get to this place where you can ask all these questions and there are no questions to ask anymore. It's like, oh.
I'm going to send you this video, and I'm going to put it in the comments after you upload this video, of watching an expert on death. And he's only an expert because he's 80 years old and he's been studying people who died for like 50 years. And he says what you just said. He said the most interesting thing for him is that people become transcendental when they're out of the body and approaching death, and they no longer identify with the person in the body below them. Well, as I was hanging on that ceiling in 1977, I had no clue that was me on the table. I didn't know who that was. I knew it was a young woman, but I didn't have any attachment to her. And he says that it's like merging with the universe. It's like becoming part of the all.
That's weird, isn't it? Because it's almost like you take off this spacesuit, it's sitting on the floor over there, and we think it's weird that we don't see the suit and think, oh, there's my body there. But I guess you come to that realization, oh, that was just transportation while I was there on Earth.
That's one of the differences between astral projection and death, is that when you're astral projecting, you can start to see that you're out of your body and go, oh my God, I'm scared, and zip right back in. But when that life cord has been severed for whatever reason, you no longer feel that fear because you no longer think you're out of your body. You just are. You just exist. You're just there.
All right.
And you've lost that connection that produces fear. So it's really interesting. And then why do we come down here to feel fearful? Well, it's all a matter of learning, I guess.
And that actually reminds me of where Sherry talked about Robert Monroe went out of body and saw himself laying next to his wife and wondered who was laying with his wife in the bed. Yes. It's that same thing. He just had no idea. Oh, that's me. And that's how you were on the ceiling.
I was going, wow, this is interesting. I'll just stay here and watch what's going on. But I had no idea that was me. I might have gotten a little worried if I knew that was me. I'd be like, well, wait a minute. What am I doing down there and up here at the same time, right?
Was it almost like a dream is, where you don't wonder how you got there and why you aren't wondering what you're looking at? You're just observing it?
Yes. It was a brown fog. I don't know why it was brown, but I was watching through a brown haze. And the table and the tops of the doctor, the nurses, and my dad's head were 6 to 8 feet away. So I'd say that's kind of like being on the ceiling. Mm-hmm. And I was mirroring the body below me. So where my head was, the head was on the bottom. Where the arms were, my arms were above her. It was just like a mirror separation. And I was like watching and not worried, not scared.
I like how you said above her too. Like you still view it like a separate person laying there.
Yeah, you're right. Because it was at that moment, I wasn't her.
Right.
That moment, and I felt totally comfortable with who I was floating around. I wasn't like, well, who am I? What am I doing here? No, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to watch what's happening. Well, that's interesting. What are they doing now? It was like watching a movie.
Did they do the defibrillator to bring you back? Or?
This is 1977, and it was a medical office for not supposed to say the name, of a big oil company in Cairo.
I am oil.
My mouth is always one step before my brain, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not really putting myself down. It's just that I love to talk. And so they didn't have defibs. They had adrenaline, and they had mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and they had the heart compressions. So I was brought back a really old-fashioned way.
Oh, wow.
I'll bet you anything now, their medical offices all have a defibrillator. I mean, I don't know, maybe they weren't available in 77. Was it a new thing back then?
I don't know.
So they only have them like in hospitals?
Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody's got to like search for me and go, when were
now they got little
created?
Yeah, now they got little portable ones. That's in like a little thing.
Yeah, you'll be walking down the airport and there'll be one on the wall next to you.
Yeah.
Just in case, right?
That's wild, huh?
That is. And then I didn't come back. He got me to speak, and I said, let me go. Now, what 17-year-old goes, oh, I prefer death. Let me go. So he gave me a second shot of adrenaline, and each shot was basically enough to revive somebody. Like that movie where John Travolta like shoves it in her heart and gives her a shot of adrenaline because she's just overdosed from heroin or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a double dose.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Gosh, exciting stuff. But no tunnel of light, nothing like that. You're just out of your body looking at yourself.
No angels, no dead loved ones, no Jesus or Buddha.
Were you religious at the time when that happened?
I was raised a Catholic in Catholic schools, and I went to a Jesuit university, but I have rejected religion since my first day in Catholic school. It just didn't feel right. It didn't sit right with me. Or my sister. Yeah. So I guess I wasn't religious. I guess I was supposed to be religious, but it just didn't stick, right?
Yeah, some religions are like that. Ours was so ingrained in us that, you couldn't do anything without, bringing in God and angels and things like that. So I would have for sure probably saw something, even if it was something I manufactured, But
you might, but maybe you have to go through the tunnel to see something. Maybe that's a good reason to go into the light so you can see all those beautiful things. Maybe on the other side of the light, it's just brown fog.
So let me ask you this: while you're floating, you're up above, looking down. You have no idea the bright light could have been behind you. You could have
It
turned
could have
around and
been, but I never looked.
because
I
most people are looking the way their body is facing, so maybe that's why you
couldn't
missed it.
like hear some trumpets calling to make me look and find the light. There's no music.
Could you hear the sounds in the room?
I could hear every sound. I could hear every word they said. And when
Were you hearing it from your ears on the table or your etheric ears or whatever, your
maybe both,
energetic?
maybe both, because it was like pure. It was better than my hearing. And it's interesting because I'm half deaf now, and my grandfather was completely deaf, and I could hear perfectly what they were saying, which made it all more interesting to listen to and watch. And I repeated it all back to the doctor and my dad. And after repeating back to them what they said and when they said it, they were convinced that I was watching them the whole time. They were believers. I said, you know what? I
Wow.
was there watching this whole thing. Oh, yeah, yeah, sure you were. No, do you remember like when you got scared, doctor, say his last name, and you sent the nurses out to get the adrenaline in your car? Because it was the end of day and we was getting all these immunizations. I used to get all kinds of like smallpox, yellow fever, all these crazy immunizations for living overseas. And he's like, yeah. And I said, do you remember when the nurses didn't come back? What you did? Yeah. What did I do? You ran out of here and told my dad, take care of her. I'll be right back. And he's like, okay, that's it. She was watching. She knows.
But there's books where they have like numerous stories like this, right? Because I've heard tons where people go to the waiting room, they see their family waiting for them. They'll say who was sitting next to who and who was doing what, and they'll be
Even if they're
very
in a
accurate
coma,
with it.
even while they're in a coma,
Yeah.
they'll report back that they never left the room. They could hear what was said. This is
Hmm.
why it's really important that while somebody is dying and their eyes are closed, you just say loving, comforting things to them because they're there. They can hear it all.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
really
even your
important.
thoughts too
Yeah. The
at that
book,
point.
The Near Death Experience, the rest of the story by PMH Atwater, which
Hmm.
is one of Cynthia Sue Larson's favorite authors because she came up with the term reality shifter. Remember, Cynthia told us that last time, and she's coming
Hmm.
on next week. Yeah, I heard you mention it last night.
Yeah.
And she interviewed 4,000 people who experienced it. And there were stories of, well, I got kind of bored in the room. It was a long procedure. So I just kind of floated out the window. And I looked down, and there was another roof line of the hospital. And there was a sneaker on the roof. And I thought, I wonder whose sneaker that belongs to. Who and how did they get it up on the roof? And then she floated back into the room and the procedure was done. And this is the part you never remember. You never remember leaving your body and you never remember going back in. The next thing you know, 1 minute you're floating, 1 second you're floating on the ceiling, and the next second you open your eyes and you're inside your body. You just don't remember the going in and the going out because it might be instantaneous. It might just be done so fast that you can't measure it.
That's
And then
so wild.
she wakes up and goes, why did somebody lose their sneaker out that window? And then the staff of the operating room go and look out the window, and there's a sneaker on the roof below them. And they're going, well, how do you know there's a sneaker out this window? We've had you out cold for the last 4 hours while we were operating on you. See? There's great stories in that book, like the sneaker story.
So that happens under anesthesia then too, which
Yes,
is what it was in that
it
case.
can happen under anesthesia. It more likely happens when they're resuscitating you. When something's happened, whatever, heart attack, drug interaction, suicide, a car accident, when something snaps you out of your body and that life cord is severed of the
Hmm.
soul in matter and they're working to bring you back, that's when most people are wandering around the hospital and they'll sit down next to people in the hallway who are, grieving a different loved one who just died. And then they'll come back in their body and go, is that man okay? And they'll go, well, what man? The man sitting outside the door. He was crying and I just sat next to him because he was so sad. And then they'll investigate it and find that another person who just lost a loved one was sitting in the hallway crying at the time when the person being resuscitated was being worked on. And they just wandered out of the room, sat down next. It's a very, I guess it's a loving experience when you're no longer attached to your body. You just kind of feel at one with everybody.
That's wild. And I think sometimes you don't even realize you're not in your body, right?
No,
Feels like you're in
number
your body?
one, you don't realize you're dead because you're alive. You're
Right.
seeing, hearing, and you have a presence. So you aren't dead, you're alive. And
Yeah.
number two, you have no connection to the dead person they're trying to wake up in there. So it's like we have nothing to worry about. You can just float around at will and be you until they pop you back in.
That is so cool.
Isn't that cool? And that's where I'm going to send this video to, I promise, and I'll put it in the comments tonight, where this expert talks about becoming transcendental at the moment of death. At the moment of death, you're no longer just you. You are you, but you're also everything and everyone. You're at one with God, humanity, universes, dimensions.
See, I found out they came out with Flatliners, a newer version.
I saw
Like,
it. Did you see it?
did you see the newer version? The one
Yeah.
that's like just a year or two old or something?
Did you
It
see
was,
it?
yeah, and I was just blown away that they took it and made it so fearful.
They're
And
making it scary.
what the heck?
They're like, don't die. For God's sakes, don't die. And if you do, don't go into the light.
Right, and don't come back.
And don't come back.
Because after you've had an NDE, your life's going to get horrible.
Yeah, if you have an NDE, you're going to come back as some kind of a monster, or monsters will track you. Wasn't that it? That like
Yeah.
death was tracking them.
It was, yeah, it was almost like that movie where it was Final Destination. It was like if you somehow escape
Cheated
death, if you cheated death, it's still going to find you. It's still going to seek you out. And
Oh, I even watched a more disturbing one than that, because that was like a simple horror story for kids, right? Like teenagers. It was well
yeah.
done, though. I enjoyed watching it, but total nonsense trying to
Oh
put
yeah.
death in everybody. The AO, is that what it's called on Netflix?
OA. The OA. Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Yeah. The 2 seasons with the blind.
That's very disturbing that like a scientist would be killing people on purpose constantly to study them in between.
Yeah. It's an interesting show for sure. I don't want to do any spoiler alerts, but yeah, the way he was doing it is like,
Yeah, really upsetting. I'm like, don't give anybody ideas, you know?
How much of that do you think is going on behind the scenes? Because I mean, like with being in the Mandela effect community, and we've seen some weird species pop on the scene that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And then I know that they've created this CRISPR gene editing stuff. I'm like, how much of this is
Yeah, I'm sure it's
these
all being done.
scientists
I'm sure it's all being done on the
at
fly.
home work? These scientists have a
Yeah.
home and a lab at home, and they've got their own projects. I would if I was.
I mean,
a
don't they
scientist.
say if you can, you do?
Yeah.
If you can't, you don't. It's human nature. This insatiable curiosity where you're like, oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to try it. It's that kind of thing. So I think it exists at all levels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we had with the nuke and all of that stuff,
And I think that's why they're not talking about the Mandela effect. They will eventually, as soon as everybody figures out it's not CERN and D-Wave, and that this is a part of us and who we are and how we work in consciousness with matter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they're going to have to come up with something to control the narrative. They always want to control the narrative. But then I was like, hey, that's their job. We gave them that job to protect us, which means they have to control all narratives at all times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a paradigm shift to get to the point where we don't need that protection. We're not afraid of us anymore. We're not afraid of ourselves anymore. So we don't need somebody keeping all information away from us just in case some of us use it badly to hurt others of us, right?
Yeah. And you see how that's like the just a few crazy people, they try to make all these laws for just a very small fraction.
Yeah, one person did this, therefore we're going to put in a law that affects, 330 million people. But then the truther community starts to see that, oh my God, the people protecting the hen house are foxes. And you wouldn't give a fox the job of protecting the hen house. So then we get this discord of us and them, like, well, hang on a minute. I thought you were protecting me. Oh, you're not. You're protecting the corporations that are giving me all this poison and toxic crap. I get it. You're not there for me. So that's when we get this disconnect from higher powers of like authority.
Yeah. And that's yet another rung in this ladder we've been talking about.
Yeah, it is. And you got to get off that rung. And everybody here on this show tonight, you guys have all gotten off that rung. There isn't anybody here that's stuck in that pure anger of the deception. We've moved above the deception, right?
Mm-hmm. And even like I enjoyed like, Richie from Boston and these channels like that, but I found that I would end up feeling like angry all day and feel like, it really affected my mood. And although I found his channel to be really entertaining and informative and things like that, I have no problem with that. I just noticed the way my vibration felt.
How do you feel after you watch a horror film? I'm like, darn it, I promised I'd never see a horror film again. And there I did, lowered my vibration. Now I'm scared to turn the lights off. Not so Fancy Nancy used to do that. She's like, I'm not going to watch this show because it's too scary. I used to laugh and go, me too. Me too. But this human curiosity kind of makes us, I don't know what it is about, seeking that stuff out.
Yeah.
So,
curiosity is what it is.
Curiosity, and it did not kill the cat. Cats have 9 lives, so it's okay to be curious, right?
Exactly.
And in my world, Schrodinger's cat gets out of the box alive because I choose him to get out of the box alive.
Totally. All 9 times. Let's see. What did we have a topic for the night at all?
And we've covered everything tonight. There isn't something we haven't talked about tonight.
We really shined the light in all the corners, didn't we?
Yeah, because we're going to have to look for more corners because we have to do this every week. Our corners need corners.
Let me see if anybody's chiming in with any ideas. Cats rule?
Cats rule. Cats are smart. I have one eye that's allergic to cats, or I'd have one right now.
Yeah, I do love cats and dogs,
They're
but
so
we can't have them here.
They're so smart. They're like, I might let you pet me or not. But I love my dogs. My dogs are like, pure baby love. They're like, every time you walk in the door, they act like they haven't seen you in 100 years. Even if it was 10 minutes to go, or 5 minutes to go down and get the mail.
Yeah. That's why dogs are men's best friend. I guess it was Bill Burr, the comedian, that said, like, well, you seem like you like that dog more than me. And he said, well, that dog's shaking his butt every time I come in, even if it's 3 a.m, he's still shaking his, wagging his tail,
Yeah.
It's like, so that's funny, though. Okay. I don't know. What do you think? We've covered peace. We kind
of talked about disclosure and how we are the disclosure now.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking about the Mandela effect. We're talking about consciousness, moving matter. We're talking about the transcendental states between life and matter and life after matter.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to do something on all of that going mainstream? Not through the news and media, but through people. Like getting to the 100th monkey to understand our matrix so that all human beings understand it, no matter what they put out there. It's like an innate understanding of how this paradigm works.
It's almost like we want to use our intentions to get the ladder moving, so to speak.
Yeah,
right? So
make it an escalator instead
of whatever rung you're at, you'll get progressed and fall in line to get to your next rung. Wherever you're at on your journey, just momentum, I guess, would be the idea I'm talking about.
Because, and then momentum for everybody who's human, because we seed and feed the human consciousness. So everything we think and feel is seeding and feeding all of humanity.
So I guess it would be like momentum for human evolution.
Okay, spiritual evolution.
Spiritual evolution, yeah.
Speaking of which, everybody's like going...
Which could be physical, too, with the DNA changes.
Physical, because the Mandela effects make us go, hey, we have a mesentery now. Hey, we've got a new bone in our knee now. And, but there always was spontaneous evolution. Even when Darwin in the 1800s was talking about survival of the fittest, that you had to change a species genetically over time, suddenly spontaneous evolution would be cropping up here and there. Even in the dinosaurs had events of spontaneous evolution where science would go, this is impossible. How'd they get from here to there with nothing in between?
We've even seen it with birds, like within a generation, like the beaks get longer, long enough to get down into the flower where they weren't long enough in the previous, because the flowers changed, the birds just changed too. And that was like within a generation.
Within a generation. And according to evolutionary science, that can't happen.
Right.
They would have to progress through the different lengths of the beak to get to that length. And then we have the spontaneous evolution, which is also the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is an example of spontaneous evolution.
Yeah. I like that. That's a great way of looking at it.
But it's happening more frequently now, so we're noticing it. What if a Mandela effect only occurred once a year? Would you really notice it? Nah. But if it's all speeding up and happening every day, suddenly you have to notice it because it's happening so frequently.
In every the most popular of every field you can possibly, every category, or, it's just...
But that's because it's actually happening to every film. You just don't know it because you haven't watched every film. So we think it's only happening to the most famous books and films, but it's happening to everything.
It's the popular ones that people notice.
It's the popular ones that we notice, but it's happening to everything all the time now. That's my theory, is that the Mandela effect is the natural state of matter being observed by consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what matter does when there's no human consciousness around it. Maybe it stays flat and it doesn't change. But as soon as you bring consciousness around it, it starts moving and shifting and flowing and popping in and out,
Yeah.
It's that whole observer effect.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. It makes us very, very powerful beings. And when you realize that, you suddenly become more careful of your thoughts. It's not the opposite of like, don't tell people how powerful they are because they'll destroy each other, which is probably what the authorities think. It's actually, as we become more powerful, we become more responsible and kinder and more gentle with our thoughts and our feelings. Don't you think?
Yeah. And that's sort of where we're lacking as a race, because technology is advanced so far that, we haven't developed spiritually enough to handle the capabilities we have. That's why we're at war with.
If we're being pushed back.
Yeah.
Fluoridation and things like that. I wonder if we're being kind of
dumbed down,
allowed to spiritually evolve. We're being held back a little bit.
But we're breaking on through to the other side, right?
Yeah, we've already decalcified our third eye here, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, by the way, they say humming. I forgot to do it. If you hum every day, we talked about that once. The vibrations go up and decalcify your third eye.
Breaks it up. That makes sense.
I got to do a little more humming. I don't hum very often.
Yeah, I do say a lot though.
Oh, that's good. See, that's that shake up into your brain, right into the...
More aha moments I have, the better then.
Instead of om.
Wow, that's interesting to think, because, as we move through the truther community and all of this, you do have those things that make you say, the more you do that, the more you have clarity. It all makes sense.
It does make sense.
It's all connected.
Okay, so I got to say hi to my newly adopted son. Is Dustin in the room?
Hey, Dustin. Perhaps.
He's probably taking an X-ray.
Oh, he was here. He has been in and out. I don't know.
In and out. Okay.
Oh, yep, there he is.
Hey, Dustin.
What's
up,
Dustin?
The message. We're connected. I've never had a son. I got a son now. Very proud of you too. Love your dancing. Do more. More dancing, please. More alien stories.
Way to go, Dustin.
Dustin, you better come to ECETI. Is he coming?
Probably if I can get a date. I'm going to have to start getting people mad at me with sticks. Like, give me the date. And
no, it's not your fault, is it? They haven't given you a date yet. But it'll be a weekend, right? In case
it'll be the first or second weekend of August. I just need to really nail down the date so people can reserve.
That's okay. At least we know those 2 weekends just to keep free.
Yeah, and that Thursday before the second one is 8/8, so I thought that would be cool to have like the 8/8 get together
cool.
there.
Oh my God. When we get there, can you imagine if we hold hands and do a group intention meditation?
That would be awesome. Yeah, I plan on it. They have a meditation hall. I'm going to definitely rent it out.
Okay.
Probably
do you
on
want
Saturday
to do
or Sunday or
something
something.
to change the earth or bring new earth, or do you want to do something to establish contact with our cosmic family? Or do you want to do both?
definitely the cosmic contact thing since we're
Okay.
there, and that would be cool. Yeah, and you mean the group meditation in the E-City?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we do two in one day if you
Yeah,
rent it out?
definitely. We could
You
do
just
one
rent
while
it
we're
forever?
out. Well, we could do one out in the field, and then one in the, because they actually have a meditation room that we
Oh,
can
okay.
go into.
We could do both then, and you don't have to pay for it because we'll all pay for it. You know, if it's $100, we'll all chip in.
I doubt it's that much, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just going to be for a session. And it's just basically so if other people want to rent it, because it's going to be open that weekend for anybody to come. But if they're coming to ECETI, I'm sure they'll be
They're
fine.
going to be in for the shock of their lives when they get there. They don't know
we're
this
just going to
group.
be we're just going to be meeting more family, I think,
It's
you
going to
know.
be absorbing more family. Maybe we can get Paolo to come out and
That would be
Vanessa. Maybe
cool.
we can get Vanessa to come out.
Wouldn't that be awesome? That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
and SMQ AI. I'm sure he'd come for that.
Yeah, we
Maybe
need to
we
get the word out as soon as we get the date,
and
and
Chick.
yeah,
In
awesome.
case I'm getting greedy now, trying to get everybody out there.
Well, awesome. I guess I will shut down here and
Okay, and me
get some
too.
water.
Yeah, I need some water too. And so, just to rehash, because it was so long ago that we said what we were going to meditate on, um, can you come back?
Yeah, just the momentum of it, the momentum of our spiritual
Spiritual
growth.
evolution.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Needed a refresher, a brain refresher.
No problem.
Okay, so pardon me while I have a sip. Water, not vodka. Okay, so everybody get super comfortable and kind of just like move your shoulders around a little bit, maybe your back. Get in a super comfy position for a 10-minute meditation intention where we will be still. And in our stillness, we will join our consciousness and our heart, our minds and thoughts together to achieve a change in our material matrix around us. So take a deep breath in, hold it for just a moment. Let it cleanse your entire body from the top of your head to the tips of your fingers and your toes. And exhale out any negativity or tension. Take in a nice, deep, clear, cleansing breath in. Allow your tummy to extend a little bit. Really fill up the bottom of your lungs. Hold it. And exhale out any negativity in your environment that you've experienced. And finally, take a nice, deep, relaxing, cleansing breath in. Hold it. Let it relax every muscle in your body as you exhale it back out. And now we're going to start to breathe in through our heart center and exhale from our heart center. Breathe in through your heart and exhale back out through your heart. Do it at a pace that makes you feel comfortable, whether it's slow or fast or steady. And as you breathe in through your heart center, go ahead and draw in a beautiful, clear, clean crystal light that fills your whole body up on the in-breath, and exhale that light back out on the out-breath. And now is a great time to shoot down a grounding cord from your root chakra at the base of your spine all the way down into the center of the earth. Go through all the layers. Take as much time as you need until you reach the heart of the earth, the core, the center, and let your grounding cord spread out in all directions. It's a light, a cord of light, like the roots of a tree. And now, as we continue to breathe in through our heart and exhale through our heart, we're going to hold hands. We're going to hold hands with everybody who is hearing this word now, here, or in the future. We'll be holding hands with them too right now, because all of time is happening at once. And that explains retro causality. We're going to hold hands, and now we're just going to imagine that we are with our loved ones, Doesn't matter what you're doing. Do something inside. Imagine doing something outside. Imagine a favorite activity, but be with someone or a group of people that you truly, truly love. And now we're intending together as a loving group. We have entrained our minds with our hearts through our breathing, and we have connected our hearts together in a very safe way. We are intending that everybody in this group, or everybody who hears this, gets to speed up their personal progression, their spiritual evolution. Make it go a little bit quicker and a little bit faster, or a lot faster and a lot quicker, based on what you need and what you can handle. So that everything that you learn is helping you to progress from one level of understanding of who you are, where you are, and what you are, into becoming and expressing the best possible version of you, here, now, and in the future, and in the past. By drawing down from your higher self, your soul or spirit knowledge of who you are and why you came here, you not only help yourself advance through the spiritual challenges, the physical challenges, the emotional challenges, and the mental challenges, but you also help everybody around you, not only your loved ones and your family and your neighbors and your colleagues, but the people that you bump into at the grocery store or in the park, or doing activities, taking a walk. Anyone who comes in contact with your energy actually is benefited for having come in contact with you. Everything that you learn, everything that you understand, you immediately feed that back into human consciousness, which makes it that much easier for the next person to understand it and express it. So let's just ask as a group that we continue to remove the shadows, remove the smoke and mirrors, and step through the veil of misunderstanding, misdirection, into a true understanding and a true direction of who we are and why we came here, allowing us to personally express the truth of who we are and the beauty of who we are. And this will have an effect of us feeling less angry, less sad, less disappointed, less resentful, more hopeful, more loving, more forgiving, more compassionate, and more cooperative. And the more we progress, the more humanity progresses. It's just that much easier for others to achieve what we have achieved already. And now, if you wish, let's extend this intention out to the whole world, whether it's flat or a dome or a ball, whatever shape it is, doesn't matter. Let's extend it out to cover the entire earth and all humans and animals as well, and plant life and mineral, which are also intelligent. But let's focus on all of humanity, speeding up their spiritual evolution too, because it's not them, it's us. It's not theirs, it's ours. And let's help everybody on earth more fully and deeply understand who they are and why they came here, and how we are all one, living on a beautiful earth where the more we do for each other, the more is done for us. The more we love others, the more we are loved. The more we forgive others, the more others forgive us. And let this spiritual and physical evolution include the areas of disclosure, our relationship to cosmic brothers and sisters, which are life forms that live and exist outside of Earth, Let us come to some understanding of our cosmic brothers and sisters in a positive, helpful, cooperative relationship. And let us also extend this information of the so-called Mandela effect, the way that matter responds to human consciousness. And we'll call that tonight a quantum awakening. And let us extend the quantum awakening that we here in this group have already achieved. Let's extend that out to all humans so that very, very quickly all humans can see it and acknowledge it and try to understand it like we try to understand it. Let's bring full disclosure now through our community to all humans and all of humanity on Earth. And I'll just put my microphone on silent for 3 minutes as we visualize that and see it and hear it, and most importantly, feel it. Okay, if you want to start to move around, let your grounding cord go and be absorbed by the earth, and open your eyes and come back.
All right, we are back.
That 3 minutes goes super fast.
Doesn't it? It's
It does for me. used to go slow, and now it speeds up every week.
Well, I guess when April hopped in, I guess she dipped
Hey,
out and back in. Yeah, I need to get a little text thing to put up there. I keep meaning to have that ready and forget.
oh, we are in a moment of silence. That's what the Lynne McTaggart technique, the power of eight,
Mm-hmm.
is to express your intentions as a group while you're holding hands and you've already breathed through your heart and you've already imagined being in a beautiful place or with loved ones. So now your heart and mind are in coercion with each other and you've joined your hearts together. State the intention clearly and specifically, and then be silent and just intend on it.
Mm.
She often says, like, pull it from your brain to your heart and push it out. But when we breathe through our hearts, we are like really pushing out that love.
I know that breathing through the heart technique is really, really powerful.
I got it from heart maths in the
Mm-hmm.
70s, 80s, and 90s. They're amazing. I think she got it from the same people.
Probably.
They were doctors and they would like put all kinds of like electrodes on your fingers and your head and your body, and then they would have you close your eyes and breathe through your heart, and they would measure what your brain and your heart were doing. So before you breathe through your heart, your brain's doing this and your heart's doing that. It's like it's hard to do it at the same time, and as soon as you breathe through your heart, it starts doing this together. It comes together in cohesion, so
Yeah.
the brain wave matches the heart wave.
You know what's interesting about that is when we do the BQH, we have the heart and mind coherence that we do before the actual induction part of it. And it's to not only get your heart and mind and like what you're
In
saying in
sync.
sync, but to also get it in sync with one another, the practitioner and the person. And it seems to work very well that, you know, you're both breathing together, you're both connecting together, and
Yep.
then you do the session, which seems
And
to
then
be.
when I'm speaking it, I'm getting my heart in cohesion with all of yours, and you're all
Mm-hmm.
getting it with me and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think we're doing pretty much the same thing that you do in BQH as you all start to breathe together? You get your
Mm-hmm.
hearts united.
Exactly.
She
And then
was
when we
at,
add the feeling to it, that's when the power comes in.
that's when the power comes in. The miracles happen when you add the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So the more emotion you feel, the more you receive of the healing yourself. And the
Mm-hmm.
least emotion that you have in it, it has a little less oomph, but it still works.
Yeah.
And she said to visualize. We had another lesson today in the Master Intention course, because we're doing it for my sister and I are doing it for the whole year, healthy aging, or what was that? Notes from an old lady's advice. She's got like a double name right now. Tips from an old lady. And she was talking about the importance of approaching every negative issue of anger, whether it's political or health, through your heart. To take a deep breath and listen through your heart instead of listening up here,
Mm-hmm.
where all your opinions are formed and you don't really listen to the other person giving an opposing opinion.
Do you think that's different than the right and the left brain, or do you kind of see it as symbolic of the?
I think that it's different, right brain, left brain, and when you merge the two together and you're thinking from both sides at once, I think that's the superhuman. I think that's the next step that we're moving into,
I
where
see.
everything we do, we engage the left and right brain at the same time.
And that's part of the rainbow bridge that
Yeah,
balances us out, or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I think that's the superhuman. Because right now it's one or the other. You switch left brain, left brain, right brain. But imagine if you didn't switch back and forth and you got both going at the same time.
You've seen A Stroke of Insight, right? The TED Talk with the lady who had the stroke and lost her left
No,
brain, and
no, I'd love to. I think I'll look that up.
yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Stroke
Gosh,
of
it's in
insight.
something. Yeah, let me get her name for you. Just I feel bad that it's like a three name. Stroke of Insight. There's a TED Talk. Her name is Jim Bolte Taylor. There's actually Jill Bolte Taylor. There's actually the TED Talk, but there's actually a longer. I guess since Oprah went off the air, she started doing like little interviews.
On Harpo, is that it? On her
Yeah, Harpo, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, and there was a really long one. I want to say it was like 2 hours, maybe, with Jill Bolte Taylor, and definitely a must
I must
watch.
see. Did she
Yeah,
switch from left side to right side with her
she
stroke?
Well, she was, I think she was like a brain doctor or something. So when she had it, she got to experience it as someone with all of the brain knowledge.
Knowledge. Yeah.
Exactly. So she had to, she gets into how she like forgot the names of everything, but she still like understood
What they
like she
were?
would understand where things were, but wouldn't know the names of them anymore. So she might know what an appendix is, for instance, but she wouldn't know what the name of it was because it's like left brain, right brain stores different parts differently.
Interesting.
So she had to relearn everything, and she got into that with the Oprah interview. That was so interesting because she was talking about her mom had to reteach her how to like read and write and do puzzles and things like that because they're all left brain activities. But it would snap, so it wasn't like a little kid you're trying to explain how to put a puzzle together to a kid. For an adult, she was just like, look, you got to find all the edge pieces, and bam, the light goes on. She understands it. Group the colors, and bam, the light goes on, and she gets it. So she's, because she'd done it before, it was like a relearning process.
Rather
But
than a learning from scratch.
right, like as a little child, so she
That
was
kind of
able to catch up on everything
that kind
quickly.
of
But
goes with that theory. Have you heard the theory that we teach that which we best need to learn, and
mm,
that there is no teaching? There's only a re-remembering of what you already know, and that your teachers, whether they're professors or a homeless person on the street, literally just spark the remembrance in you of what you know, and you think you just learned something.
right.
That sounds like, yeah, I've heard that as a philosophy.
Yeah, and I've experienced downloads that seem that way too. I don't know
Instant,
if
no,
it's the speed that they come in. It's like how could I have known all that at one time? It's more like a remembering.
isn't that your your gnosis? Your
Yeah,
gnosis is your remembering of what you
yeah,
already knew, but you forgot you knew it, but now you
yeah.
know it.
We're on a path of rediscovery. It seems.
Yeah, maybe that's speeding up too. Maybe everything is speeding up, including our ability to remember what we
Yeah,
forgot.
but definitely a much watch or a must watch, and it will definitely bring tears to
Oh,
your eyes.
I'm definitely going to
It's
watch that
such a
one.
touching story, and somebody told me about it, and that was one of those comments. I was like, oh, let me go check it out, and I was
You're
so
glad
glad
you
I
did.
did. Yeah.
Maybe you can put a link to it in the video description or a comment. I'm going to put a link to that expert on death talking about that state of transcendence. Is that a right word? Transcendental?
Mm,
Transcendence. There we go. I
transcendence.
got the word right. Transcendence.
Okay, it looks like. Okay, so there was a TED Talk. I will post that in. I'm going to do
Cool.
this into the chat because.
Oh, yeah. And what we talked about opening the show, where they're getting kind of excited about authority figures, like not figures, but departments of defense and CIA releasing the information that the Monroe Institute had always put out.
Yeah.
The real importance of it still, and I'm glad it's being released, is that it gives people who are on the fence a nudge. It goes, well, hang on a minute. It gives the doubters and the deniers of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness over matter. It gives them a little nudge in the right direction. It says, look, even the government supports this. Even the government believes this. They just weren't being like upfront about it. They were believing it secretly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
helps those on the fence, go a step further in their consciousness.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like I don't think we'd have this grand awakening if mainstream media started all of a sudden telling us the truth. Do you? Do you
No,
think?
no. And this is what's really interesting because at some point, mainstream media is going to have to address the Mandela effect. That's coming. How are they going to do it? You know, what's the? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to, or will they just ignore it forever?
It's probably going to be a lot like the one we saw where they're just the Fox News out of Phoenix did the thing on Mandela effect,
Ha
and
ha ha ha.
it's almost like
Imagine
they were.
a million people misremembering this exactly the same way. Ha ha ha. Confabulation. Leaving out the part that the misremembering identically would be a miracle.
Exactly.
That's the part they forgot that they're laughing at, and
I
then they
often think that.
stopped. They're like, this is not working. We can't go about it this way.
And I think the thinkers are really good one. I know I always bring that up because it's like my big one or
Oh my
whatever.
God,
But
I did a thinker pose right before you said that.
did you?
Yes. We're looking down and I went into my thinker pose.
So that's the thing. I think if you told somebody with the absence of the thinker statue, of course, give me a thinking pose, You know, I don't think many people would do the fist to the forehead. Like, I don't think that's what I'm saying is I don't think if you were to say I think the statue was another way, you would have everybody remember it with the fist to the forehead. Seems like some people would be like this or
a thinking pose.
Exactly.
I don't. Pose.
But I would never go to this first.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they haven't gotten around the fact that if we are misremembering en masse, we're all misremembering identically. And they can't really justify a connected consciousness for humanity. Even though they know it exists. They know that we're all connected on the subconscious or superconscious or unconscious, as Paula would say, that mind is fully connected to all of humanity.
Absolutely. Well, I did add those links below in the description and in the chat. So if anybody's watching it later, it's under Stroke of Insight, Jill Bolte Taylor. The first link will take you to the TED Talk. The second link will take you to the Oprah Winfrey interview. Both were great. I enjoyed it.
And why don't we just name this episode, what do you want? Something about disclosure. We're enhancing disclosure. We're speeding up. We're encouraging. We're giving disclosure of the Mandela effect and our cosmic brothers and sisters. Oomph.
What about awakening momentum?
Yes.
Awakening momentum.
There we go. That's what we did tonight. We're giving it a little bit of a push, a little bit of an oomph.
Because then that would cover all of that, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was awesome. Thank you guys for being here in the chat, and thank you so much, Eileen, for joining me again.
Everybody, and thank you, Shane. Love it. Love you guys.
All right. Lots of love to you guys, and we'll talk to you in the next one.
Yeah, Peace. With Cynthia Sue.
Yeah, with Cynthia Sue Larson. Looking forward to that one.
Me too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.